Shawna Karrasch here, coming to you from Villanova. Okay, so this question comes from Fiona, and it says, "Hi Shawna, my pandemic project has ended up where being working on socializing 3 mini donkeys and 1 mini mule that live in a huge field with 6 goats, 2 llamas, and an old estate that is in a non-plague times." Is rented out for weddings and other events. Aside from grabbing treats over the French fence from one of the neighbors, their only human interaction was being roped by several guys, and in case of the mule being held down for vet visits. The mule has also gotten away and bolting from the men on numerous occasions. As a result, all four were wary of being caught, and the mule in particular is feral. I began by just hanging out in their field with them and letting them come to me when they wanted. The donkeys were won over by scratching. They follow me around and are great about haltering. We've got leading down fairly well, and they're pretty good about their feet being handled. I now have them on a regular farrier schedule as the feet weren't being done before. The mule always keeps his distance, but over a month or so, I got him to engage with me by doing advance and retreat and making sure that to be his first. Is there a question? Wait a second. There we go. Okay. This weird little site got lost a little bit. Okay. Let me get back on track here. Engage by doing that routine, making sure to be the first to walk away at the end of every bout of it, so he understands he's never being chased. That he is never being chased. I need glasses right now. I'm sure he's never being chased. I didn't want to use food initially because grabbing and running was firmly entrenched behavior with the over-the-fence treats from the neighbor. But now that he actually will come and touch me with his nose, I thought clicker training could get us to that crucial next step of him tolerating me touching him, and from there, everything beyond. To introduce the clicker, I started bringing a flake or two of hay with me and sitting until he stopped being skittish about it. My question is, do you think my having introduced the sound of the clicker in this way will cause any problem or confusion when I start actually clicker training him? I played a little bit with having him target on my phone in my hand, click reward, and he was interested, but so was everyone else, including the goats. And besides all the interference from everyone else, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I've been on pause a few weeks while I read your book, and to create an area in the run-in shed that I can close off so I can work with him in a more contained space without everyone else's participation, especially since he is also the lowest on the donkey pecking order, and they push him out of the way. During this pause and active engagement, he's been hanging out on the outskirts and a lot of watching me working with the donkeys. I talk to him, but I don't put any pressure on him. He will have moments when he hovers and looks sort of, I don't know, longingly at me. I offer the back of my hand to him so there's nothing threatening, and wait as he takes his time to actually decide to come. When he comes, he has been lingering longer with his nose touching my hand. If he seems relaxed, I wait for him to walk away. But if he has the skittish energy, sometimes I quietly take my hand back after a moment or two and turn away first. When I do that, he often takes longer with his nose touching. He also often takes a step or two towards me and hovers. I speak to him and talk and tell him bye, but I keep walking away. I really don't know what I'm doing, just been trying to pay attention to them and follow them. And I'm guessing they're telling me. So it was a big relief to discover your book and videos. The farrier I found who specialized in donkeys said horses play checkers, mules play chess. So I haven't been very concerned about taking things slowly. But should I be? In this weird state of suspension that is the pandemic, where those of us who normally work backstage on Broadway can't and won't for many months more. There's something so peaceful about being on the donkey farm. Okay, Fiona, I think you are doing fabulous. You are really doing a great job with not even knowing what you're doing. And in my book, I don't talk about the babies or the feral, abused, wary horses. So I want to direct you. First of all, I do have an episode, a lesson on this in my podcast, and my podcast is called Equine Clicker 101. So I talk about dealing with feral, uncertain, scared, skittish horses. We also currently have a horse here, and she was feral. I'd say she's not feral now, but she still has a very big aversive response to the halter. No matter how slow we've done it, getting it on her, having her target, it just is still too much. I've never had one take as long as it does for her. And so, and she was, I mean, when they came here, they said she's very dangerous and, you got to watch out. And she might be inbred because she's not behaving like anybody else. And basically, she was just more sensitive. So she was more terrified, and her experience was more lasting when some of the others kind of got over it quicker. And so it's very similar to what you're seeing. And so what I would recommend doing. So first of all, there's something I wanted to say. Going slow is not a problem. And I love what your farrier said, that horses play checkers and donkeys play chess. Or mules play chess, mules and donkeys. Because one of the things I've always said is mules and donkeys are thoughtful. So a lot of people that are used to horses go up and go, do this. I'm talking kind of traditional. Do this, whatever it is. And then they don't do it. And then they want to go make them do it. And then the donkey was just thinking, I'm not sure. What should I do with that? And if you give them time to think and they make up their mind and they do the thing and we reinforce it, you've got it forever pretty much. Because they've made up their mind and they've chosen that. But if you make them do it, you can often trigger them to go, no, wait, whoa, and you'll make it no forever. So I think they're thoughtful, and I just give them a chance to kind of process it and let them think through it. And it's fine. And I think this is where people get into a little bit of a sticky wicket with the horses, the donkeys and mules, because people think, oh, they're so difficult and challenging. They're not. They're actually very easy, but you do need to give them a little bit more time and a little bit more space. And maybe I have to say they're really easy with positive reinforcement, because that's the only way I've worked with them. I've never tried to do anything else with anybody, really. So I think that that's a really good saying, and it's a really good thing to keep in mind. They are thoughtful and they are playing chess. So you gotta let them have the time to think of their moves and what they want to do and make up their own mind and their decisions. And I always look at it and I think, from that, I can get information. You may choose the thing that I didn't want, like I was thinking, can you lift your foot? And you said, nope. And then I have to go, okay, well then I recognize that this isn't clear enough, or this isn't motivating enough, or this is too fearful, or whatever it might be. So it's up to me to change tactics and thinking, what else can I do to help you have the motivation or desire to do this? That's on me. They didn't ask to be here. We decided this for them. So it's really important that the onus is on us to train. And they're not being stubborn. They're not being difficult. They simply doesn't work for them. Just about everything they do is a choice they make. Things get conditioned, and we do have, reflexive responses. So, getting startled, that's something they can't really control. And in your situation where they've had experiences that have been quite fearful, that they're not going to make a different choice besides protecting themselves. And so what we need to do is think, okay, they're doing what has worked for them, and this is what they've learned. And my job is to figure out, well, how can I help you to want to make a new choice? Because our onus is on us also to help them exist in this human-centric world that we've chosen for them. So you're off to a really good start. And I love the retreat. I use the retreat all the time. So I am busy saying, I'm just over here. And in the very beginning, and you have to make a choice, and this is a risk you have to take and deduce for yourself. If you do not feel that the horse is safe, then I want you to sit outside the fence and do this, because you can do it from outside the fence. But like with, zebras will be like, yeah, we're good. Bang! So you gotta you know, those skittish guys are a little different. So you have to kind of weigh, but mostly the really skittish, really fearful horses, all they want to do is run. They want to be away from you. So a lot of times I will sit down with them and I will give them hay over there. And I'm sitting here, and there might be hay near me that maybe they'll come up to in a little bit. But I want to make sure they have the option to eat their hay staying below threshold. So if I make it too hard, I don't want them coming up and snatching the food and taking it because it means they're over threshold. That's not where I want it to be. I want to figure out how far does the food have to be away that you can still eat. You may keep your eye on me, but you're not snatching the food and leaving. You're just kind of watching as you eat. So I think that's a place where you've just at threshold, not over threshold, but enough that they're aware of you and cognizant. If they're so far away, the awareness of you is kind of minimalized. So I want it where it is comfortable enough that they can stay there and they can eat and they're not being super hyper vigilant about the whole thing, but they've got an eye on you. And when they eat and you see it getting calmer and calmer and they don't even seem to be, they're looking away and doing other things and not really worried about you, then next time I will move it maybe a foot closer, and then a foot closer, and then a foot closer, and then a foot closer, until they can eat right next to me and they're comfortable with that. Now, sometimes for some horses it takes a week. Some horses it takes a month, or they're good at a certain point and then it starts to get tricky at one point. Never move it forward until they're 100% comfortable at that place. So that's where I start. I don't know where you are in all of this, but you did the right thing also by creating a place where he could work separate from the others, because it's really important that he has a place that he's not busy being, displaced with social, activity. He can just, because now he's trying to focus on this and this and the human, and it's too much, that's not going to set him up for success. And so the getting him a place where he can be on his own, and he can, in the very beginning, he learns, I just come in here and eat. That's all I do. There's no stress in this. This is not worrisome. And meanwhile, I would be setting out hay for the other ones, or tossing them hay, as maybe you have a bunch where you can toss them some. Be careful, the tossing may be worrisome. So if he's here, I be sure I don't toss it with the hand I normally do. I may kind of just drop it over until he gets more comfortable with movement from you. But in the very beginning, sometimes I do just have to sit on the ground, and I'll sit on the ground until they will eat the hand. Like I get a big giant bucket, and I'll just be sitting next to it until they can eat. And then pretty soon I put my hands on the edge of the bucket until they eat. And then sometimes I moved my hands to here until they eat, and they're not worried about my hands. And then I'll begin to hold the bucket. And then can my thumb go in the bucket? And then can my hand be up here? And can my hand go in the bucket? And can you eat with my hand down here? Can you eat down to my hand? This can take a long time. And for some, it's not. Some, it's just a matter of days and they get over it. So depending on how much you've done with them. Once I get that, the next thing I do is I want to teach them, when you take food, I back away. When you'll take food, I'll back away. So you need a certain degree of comfort in that point. And since he was taking food from people over the fence, but I want him to learn that he can control the human. I can make the human back out of my space if I go towards them. And so they come up and they take the food, and immediately I start backing away. And I kind of shuffle slowly without a big, to do. And then they'll come up, and pretty soon they learn to pursue you. And that's a really good place to be, because now they're like, I know how to make the human go away. If I get worried about the human, they will go away very quickly. And so I start working on that. But I want to also tell you, like when I had our Taz here, who was really frightened, I started off where I was also having to teach her how to eat grain and hay pellets. She didn't know about them. And there comes a point where sometimes you need to get them medication. I need them to like grain too. I don't want her on a grain diet, but I also need her, if I have to get her meds, I need grain to not be this strange thing. And I needed to diversify her diet a little bit. All she had was hay. So in the beginning, I'd put the hay, and then I put like a handful of grain on it. And at first the hay would be gone and the grain would just be there. And pretty soon the grain wasn't there anymore. And then so pretty soon I got her where she really liked the grain. So I had kind of something extra valuable to offer her than to teach her about carrots and then to teach her about, apples. But I had something extra special to offer her. But I would be sure that she has another food source when you're in there and working with her. Because him, I had a her, you have a him. Because you don't want to feel like, I want the food, I'm hungry, I need the food, and you don't want to work with him hungry, but you don't want that conflict of thinking, but I have to go towards a scary person in order to get the food. And if people were giving him treats, he probably likes those higher value things. I'd use them randomly in there, not a whole bunch of them, but randomly in there to say, oh, if you get to the human, you can have extra good things, but I would toss some in the hay bin too. So he always has another food source to go to. So it's not some conflict and thinking I have to go there. It's almost forcing his hand. I never want to work with a horse who is hungry. I want them to feel like, yeah, I choose to be here. I'm not here because if I don't do it, I won't get fed. That's not a really good place to be. So that's another thing to consider in all this. But I think as you're doing, making the space where you can work alone, starting by the seating, being seated, getting him to eat and be able to, the reason I liked him just eating hay around me, because I got him to malinger with me, and then I would, after a little bit, I just kind of move my arms a little bit, my head a little bit, my feet a little bit. And so that kind of got used to my movement, but the backing away, once you're standing and you can back away, that's a really good place to be. One of the things I think is very tricky and very challenging, everybody wants to touch them. So it's a very common thing for the person just thinks, I want to touch you. Don't go there. That is saying, be still while I can do stuff to you. They've already had that. And that's more the same in a way. So while that is a big goal and that's where you want to get to, I highly recommend you don't go there. If there's some reason you have to, you're going to slow down your progress. I would rather, tranquilize the horse and get to do what I need to do and stop creating, or the mule, and stop creating these bad experiences. But anyway, that's another dilemma for you to work out if you get to that place. So sometimes I kind of focus right away on something that might be something we have to do, but instead I want to teach them to have control of their environment. So I teach them to touch a target. And at first I may need to go back to the ground and the target's on the ground, because if they've been roped and stuff, anything in your hand can be quite scary. So sometimes I have to go back to the ground. Sometimes I just set the target on the ground, say, can you touch that? And when they can touch it, can I hold it? Can you touch it? Can I be up here? Can you touch it? And I do the retreat again. So when they touch it, I'm saying, good, here's some food, and we'll back away. And so getting him though where he can touch the target, he likes the target, now you've got something to work with. Now you can put it in a target, put it in a cone and set it over here and have one over there. And you can teach him to go to the different targets, but it's all about him pursuing and going to. And then pretty soon I would teach him to hold on the target and building that up. So this can be something, and pretty soon I'm holding the halter, here's the target. And I'm holding the halter where the nose is here, where they can reach through without too much, and I'll disassemble it. And so he can just touch it, and I can click and reinforce, and then I can I can just reinforce for that. But he starts getting the idea of building towards it, but you're using the target to create the behavior. So instead of chasing him with the halter, you're saying, it's just here. Do you want to make a choice to do it? And at first I have the halter like right here, so the target's basically sticking through it. Having it in the cone really helps, because you don't have enough hands to hold it and hold the target and do all things and feed and click. And so that is the target would be the next place I'd go. So I recommend going and looking up dealing with the untouchables. And there's also, I'm sure I have other Ask Shawna questions on it. So Ask Shawna Answers, but the podcast being more recent, I continue to learn all the time. And being more recent, it kind of is a culmination of the things I've learned over the years, because with thousands of horses, you learn a lot. So anyway, I think that will help you get a good start. And I want you asked about the clicker and if it can be creating, poisoning the clicker, making the clicker means the bad stuff happens. Just go slow enough where it's not, in the very beginning, I don't tend to start with the clicker until they're walking they will follow me. When I feed and back away and they walk right up without apprehension, then I start clicking and feeding and clicking and feeding and clicking and feeding, because I know there's a certain comfort level and a lot of the fear has gone away. So that's typically when I introduce the clicker. But it doesn't mean it's all bad. If you just need to slow down a little bit and be sure that you have a horse who's readily approaching you, or a mule who's readily approaching you, even though you're walking away, I think that's good. And liberty leading is a great exercise to work on that's not touching him. And it's up to him to figure out and follow your steps. So I could go on and on, of course, as I always can with all these questions, but I think it's a good start. But it's certainly not the end. There's a lot of places that you're going to go from there, and it's not always the same as it is with every other horse, you know. So working through some of these issues with the untouchables is not the same as, you know, just going and saying, well, this is how you do it with the other horse. That's different. So even though on the podcast I take a generalized horse and work with things, so you may need help still along the way. So don't hesitate to reach out and we can do more of these questions, or you could come see us out here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Anyway, so I hope that helped you out, gave you some things to think about, maybe cleared up some of your questions a bit. I really appreciate you working with the untouchables and really trying to help create a better world for them. You know, I feel it kind of breaks my heart when we've said, no, you have to be here. Now we're going to lasso you. You know, that just, it doesn't, I want them to enjoy their world and feel safe in their world and feel safe with the people who are inevitably a part of their world. So I appreciate you taking the time to work on it and try to help it become happier horses, equids. All right. Thank you so much, Fiona. And if you or anybody else, you know how to do this. For those of you who do not know, how do I get an Ask Shawna answer? Go to my website, which is shawnakarrasch.com. On there, you're going to find different tabs. You're going to find Ask Shawna. That's where that's a form to submit a question. You will find the podcast, and that's where you can go listen to Equine Clicker 101, which has lessons. I think we're 48. I'm about to record another one. I think we're about like in 10 minutes, where I think we're at lesson 48, 47 or 48 now. And so there's a lot of subjects in there. So you can find them there. You can also find products if you want targets, clickers, side buckets. You can find book, video, whichever. You can find those there. And you can also find out, because my website is attached and dovetailed with the Villanova site. So you can find out what we're up to out here in Santa Fe and when we're going to be getting the world back to a normal place. We'll get back to doing workshops, and we always have things going on. So you can head over there and learn a little bit more what we're up to out here. Anyway, thank you so much for submitting your questions, and I kind of look forward to hearing some progress. So don't hesitate to post somewhere and let me know. All right, until next time, bye-bye.